Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Fathom Family podcast. We're thankful you're joining us, whether you're joining us on YouTube or on Spotify, wherever you're listening or watching from. We're thankful you're here.
Yeah, so glad. It's been a really fun time. I think I'm getting a lot out of it too. Like it's great that we're digging into this stuff and sharing it with you guys, but I'm learning a lot too, so it's been great.
Absolutely. We're here at the home studios where I just realized I can play footsie with you up under the table.
No, stabbing me with his toes.
Yeah. We're going to kind of switch gears a little bit. Last time we were talking about just godly parenting and what that looks like and leading from an honest, not a hypocritical relationship with God, just a real relationship with God, and kind of taking our kids on that journey with us. And today we're going to switch it into some character qualities. And we're going to bring two each time for each episode and really wrestle with both of these things that we see in the culture that really need to be addressed and are very important that we raise them up in our kids because of how it reflects God, but also what the Word teaches on that. Mm-hmm. How important it is for just their vitality and successful life as adults down the road. Yeah. And so we kind of wanted to start talking a little bit about different parenting styles. Do you want us to go ahead and talk about our initial parenting styles or our overall parenting styles now?
Sure, why not?
How would you classify my parenting style?
Right now?
Well, you can kind of, like from the beginning, where was it? And then what is it now?
So from the beginning, I would say that you were more helicopter-ish.
Very much helicopter dad.
And it was really more like when we would take Beckett to the park. Mm-hmm. I noticed, and maybe it was just because I did a lot of babysitting, like I was around a lot of kids.
I had babysat 0 children
right.
until we had kids.
So you and your brother are super close in age, so it wasn't like a huge gap of you were helping little kids at home or something. I just found that you were a little bit more anxious as Beckett climbed to the top of the thing than I was, which is funny.
You were anxious in like other ways. You were like the informed parent. You were the classic first mom who everything's got to be
all the books.
Everything's got to be perfect and all of that stuff.
Yeah, so I battled more in my mind like, "Oh, it's 6 to 9 months and they're not doing this," or wait, they say that, sleep regression is at 8 months and he's doing it at 6.
So 3 kids later, 10 years later, what's the difference?
Oh man.
I'm putting you on the spot. We didn't plan this at all. We're just talking.
I'm a little nervous.
I may get thrown under the bus here. I don't know.
I don't know. You're not. You're definitely not as helicopterish, and I think too.
It's not that I'm not helicopterish. I'm just not as well helicopterish is what you said.
And it's so funny because having one kid, you can zone in on one style with one, but they're all so different from each other.
Yeah, we parent really differently to all of them.
So you have to have different parenting styles, I think. I don't know. That's a hard question. You did put me on the spot.
Yeah, I would say I hear you tell first-time moms all the time, like, it's okay.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay. Everything doesn't have to be perfect. Mm-hmm. All the things you think you need, you don't need. There's a few things you need.
Yeah, and
Sleep is going to come eventually. Enjoy it.
It goes by way too fast.
For sure. So I think we both
put the book down.
we both come a long way in learning and growing, and that's what it is. It's a journey. Mm-hmm. And
sure.
So let's dive into some of these. Some of the parenting styles that you may actually reflect, everybody listening and watching. You may have an overprotective parenting style. That's kind of like the helicopter dad or mom thing. An authoritarian, like you're going to do it because I said so.
Right now.
Right now.
Mm-hmm.
head and finger waggle included. The power struggle, like some parents who are just, it's constantly back and forth. Who's in charge? Like, you ever been in one of those houses? You know, like they're just back and forth and
Yeah, and the kids play
everything's,
that.
yeah, everything's a
Mhm.
negotiation.
Mhm.
Yeah, those parents. Permissive parents is just like anything goes,
Go
right?
for it.
Welcome to
Yeah.
crazy town. And then there's the neglectful parent that's, over staring at their phone, worried about their own world, worried about their business,
Right.
and they're
They're
neglecting,
missing out. Yeah.
so that there's a lot of those different types. And really, as we move into like some of the character qualities, it's important that we kind of think about our parenting style, because regardless of where we're at, we believe it's going to call us all to step into some things that maybe are not what we've been doing and
Yeah.
that are going to challenge us to really step into some things. And so today, the two essential qualities, character qualities that we want to talk about are resilience
Mhm.
and vulnerability.
And can I say really quick before we get too deep into this,
Yeah.
we're gonna do 4 or 5 of these, and then we have a
Hmm.
part two. And so each episode is gonna have different like resilience and vulnerability, but they're all gonna kind of follow the same pattern. So we want you to
Yeah.
pay attention to. We're gonna look at, okay, what does culture say, or where do
Hmm.
we see the issues that our kids are being raised by culture?
And we
Um,
think these are just gonna, like, you're gonna see these
yeah,
and you're like, oh yeah, this is
that
like
goes with
totally.
that. Yeah, and so there's a cultural issue, and then we want to look at scripture.
Hmm.
And then what is our role as the parent?
Yep.
Parents, what is our role?
Yeah.
And so each one of them, they'll be different, but they will all carry the same theme. And that way you can kind of just simplify it a little bit where you're
Yeah.
not so overwhelmed with what am I supposed to do with this information?
For sure. I mean, speaking of the helicopter parent, the reason we're talking about the whole resilience thing is because I was that guy, and I really learned that now when my kid screams, I do care, and I'm gonna jump up and I'm gonna go see what is happening, but I'm not panicking and I'm not running,
Mm-hmm.
because there's this old saying that, oh, kids are resilient,
Yeah,
right?
they'll be fine.
Yeah, kids are resilient. I mean, I've heard people say that through the COVID stuff that, kids are resilient, like they bounce back, and that's true. Like, they are resilient, but there's also the reality that there's a generation of young people and kids who are hurting and
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
they don't know how to be vulnerable and talk about their emotions, and so they're medicating those in like a bunch of different unhealthy ways.
Yeah.
So we think resilience is actually something that is being lost in this generation, because we see this as a cultural issue where if something's hard, they just quit.
Mm-hmm.
They just quit. Like if the sports, I'm just going to quit, and and but they're also, there's this side where they're hurting and they don't know how to be vulnerable.
Yeah. It's like they're too heavy on one or the other, and
Hmm.
it has to be both.
And with this resilience thing, I mean, there's just a lack of commitment to
Mm-hmm.
things. They're very flighty. I talk to people who are employing, teenagers right now,
Yeah.
and they're just like, no text, no call, there's no communication, and they just left.
Mm-hmm.
Or they got hired and they came, did their drug test, and then they didn't show up, and like
Right.
nothing.
Yeah.
Like very flighty, very a lack of resilience and commitment to stick with
Yeah.
anything. And you told me about this thing. It's like this 1,000 hours deal. This like the rain outside when it comes
Yes.
to resilience.
So this is something that has been, I don't know if it was birthed out of the shutdown time of COVID at the very beginning, or if this is just something that's been going on for a really long time. But I found out about this lady. She wrote this book called 1,000 Hours Outside. And it's basically this idea where you log your outside time with as a family, and it's really just not so that you can log 1,000 hours for the year and feel good about yourself, but so that you're consciously saying, no, instead of watching this movie, it's a gorgeous day, we're going to get outside, we're going to
Hmm.
go explore this park we've never been to or whatever. And so one thing that she talks about is how a lot of families, like, they plan these adventures that's maybe once a month or once only on vacation, where they go outside and do like a thing together as a family. And then they wake up that morning and it starts raining and they're like, oh, okay, we're not going to do
Everybody
that.
get back in bed.
Yeah. And she says the beauty is found when you get out there in the rain. I mean, obviously, if it's dangerous, don't, but just going outside, being in the rain, like, don't worry about all of the, you know, like excuses, and just be resilient. And those kind of stories are the things that kids remember.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I remember being in one of my sports seasons growing up and just kind of being over it. I was kind of burnt out on sports and I wanted to quit in the middle of the season. And my parents would, you don't quit in the middle of the season. You quit at the end of the season.
Yeah,
You
you can choose
quit.
something
You can
else.
choose to not do it before the season, but once you're committed to it, you're going to stick with it. And so we've got to understand that it's a major cultural issue, and we've got to teach resilience. And there's actually some of these even very small ways, like don't be afraid of the rain. Like you can still go. It's not going to ruin your whole vacation. It's not going to ruin your
Yeah,
night,
it's so
ruin your
fun.
day. You can roll with it. And so we want to unpack this a little bit because honestly, it's something that's a part of the Christian life. The reality of following Jesus is it's not easy. And
Right.
in James chapter 1, verse 2 through 4, it says, consider it pure joy, knowing that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. So
Right.
resilience, perseverance,
Right.
that's what it produces, this testing. And so we can see these moments and these times in our faith, as well as raising our children, as moments in which it can actually produce resilience and perseverance in them. Whether it's, hey, oh no, you can just quit the football season, you don't like it, or so and so. No, like actually teach them. They need to develop that
Follow
perseverance,
through.
and it's actually
Yeah.
going to be a part of their faith at some point.
Right. Yeah,
Like,
because when things go bad, just quit. Like,
Uh,
I'm done with this.
Absolutely. And so we need to speak into that and not give them that every life is not the easy button. The easy button doesn't exist in real life.
No.
You know, the old Staples
No.
thing, that doesn't exist in real life.
No.
And so life is not easy. And so many of us, we had a rude awakening in early adulthood because we just thought everything was easy.
Right.
And we didn't know what it is to persevere
And
through
the
hard
beautiful
things.
thing about walking with God, like we're talking about, bringing our kids up and developing these character traits for their life, and not just for getting into a good team, but for their walk with God too, is like whenever we're weak, like whenever we find ourselves like wanting to quit or I'm done with this kind of attitude, that's when he becomes strong. Like in our weakness is where
it's
his
a great
strength
time to
like
teach that.
shines out. And I think a lot of times we just, oh, okay, yeah, you're right, you're tired, let's not do this anymore. And yeah, it's a great thing to teach, is just hang on, don't quit.
Yeah, there's another passage in Romans 5 verses 3 through 5 that really talks about that that difficulty, that testing, those trials actually lead to patience building up, and character is developed through that, like
Right.
endurance and then character, and then hope is actually where that leads us. And so in a difficult time, they've been able to walk through that in really small, simple ways.
Right.
Like we've talked about. And then in their adulthood, when they're adults following Jesus, like we'll just proclaim it as if it already is, when that's plain, and then they're hitting a difficult time, and they have hope, and they've pressed in, and that it's a much deeper testing of their faith, in fact. And so we're not saying, suck it up, buttercup. Right. And so I think that's the balance here with the vulnerability side that is so necessary, and is actually a quality that we see in Jesus.
Yeah,
It actually is. I mean, the night of his betrayal, he's in the garden and he's like, pray for me. Like my soul is anguished. And that's a real beautiful picture of God incarnate, fully God, fully man. And that fully man gives us such a window into how we are to live too, as well as the fully God.
Right.
It's an embodiment of both, but we get this little window here of just that moment of vulnerability.
Yeah, and I think if we're not fostering that at home, they're not going to be vulnerable anywhere.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely. So where do we go from here? Like, what's our role? Our role is to first like model resilience and vulnerability, like live it out, right? Out of our own relationship, live those things
just like
out.
the relationship with God, like you got to have it before you can share it.
Yeah, for sure. So like, what does that look like to model resilience? don't cancel plans. If you wake up and you're planning to go to the beach or something like that, and hey, you may not go and sit out on the beach, but you can still go have a fun adventure. You can go do something else. Maybe
Yeah.
it might look a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
I always think of your brother and our sister-in-law, Clint and Liz. They on their wedding day, that their reception, they had a beautiful Greek Orthodox wedding, and after it was planned outside, and
Yes.
the reception was, and it
And it,
started raining,
yeah.
and they. What do you do in a moment like that? Your entire reception, you have hundreds
Usually
of
they're
people
trying to
here,
bring everything
bring
inside and
everything inside, do all these other things. They went out there and just
in the dress and the
in their
tux.
dress and their tux, and they just danced in the
Yeah.
rain, and it was like it brings me to tears almost now, because it was just like
Yeah.
it was almost like a prophetic thing for their marriage and for their life, that hey,
Nothing's
the
gonna.
rain's not going to hold this down. We're going to
Yeah.
celebrate. We're going to have joy in the midst of the difficulty.
Yeah. So good.
And that's maybe something for your marriage right now, for your own
Mm-hmm.
parenting, for your own life, to dance in the rain. I also think, like, don't be a complainer.
Yeah.
Talk about resilience. Like, if you're just a constant
Whining.
complainer about everything, like, your kids are going to become that
Yeah. I
too.
think a lot of people, they don't realize how much they are whining or complaining until you hear your kids doing that, and you're
Mm-hmm.
like, man, where does that come from? Oh, that's exactly what I say all the time,
Mm-hmm.
So like, be mindful of what's coming out of your mouth. I think also too, another thing that we can model resilience to our kiddos is, like, don't overreact about every single little thing. It's We're going to figure it out together. We're never going to leave you out there by yourself to figure it out. But, like, that's so cool that we can be together and figure it out together.
Yeah.
And then it helps them not to overreact with every little thing that they're encountering on their own.
Yeah. We say no worries around here a lot.
Yeah.
No worries. We're not going to stress about, hey, we're going to stress about big things, right?
Yeah.
We're going to
of
lean
course.
into those things, and we're going to take them very seriously, but
Mhm.
we're just not going to, cry over spilled milk,
Right.
which many times
I
I've
have
yelled
done that.
over spilled milk,
Yeah.
or whatever.
That's the
You've
real.
literally
I've
cried over
literally cried over spilled milk.
Yeah, literally.
Breast milk, but
Yeah.
the liquid gold.
Yeah. Yeah. So don't do that, because I think we give them a script for anxiety that
Mhm.
will ruin and run their life if that's all that we're letting out.
Yeah.
And so we've got to have some resilience in ourselves.
What about vulnerability, like the flip of that? How do you model that?
I think it goes back to some of the stuff we talked in the first episode, or the past episode, of just about honest parenting and that repentance and forgiveness. That vulnerability with our kids is going to look different based on age, right? Things I hear all the time from people, they just found out certain things that were going on when they were a child
Yeah.
with their mom or dad, and now they're 20, 30 years later, they didn't know about that. And that's because there's time and space for certain levels of vulnerability with our children.
Yeah, we don't want to unload on their kids something that is not appropriate for their age or
For sure,
stage.
but there's a level of vulnerability that we can be there and
Mhm.
and model that hey, mommy's had a stressful day, daddy's really really tired, I need some space for a few minutes.
Yeah.
Like, that's actually a window in a vulnerable moment. Not that we're constantly doing that and just pushing them off, but in a moment of real vulnerability, they understand. Okay, they're human.
Yeah, it sees our
They're
humanity.
human.
I
Yeah,
was gonna say that
absolutely.
too. Yeah.
So that's the first thing. I mean, just modeling resilience and vulnerability, and probably the last thing is we just have to become a safe space for them to not be okay. And I had to
Yeah.
learn this. You really taught me this.
Well, I read this study one time that, because I was kind of not understanding why our child could be so well behaved everywhere we would go.
Oh, he's such a great
people,
kid.
Yeah, people would tell us, "Oh my gosh, he's so good! Like, not a peep," and always does everything they're supposed to do. And then at home, it just wasn't matching. I'm like, I don't understand that. And so I happened upon this article, and it was a child psychologist just talking about how, like, home is the safe place. Like, so the kids, they hold it together all day for the people that they're with. And, whether that's tiny little, like, daycare for tiny little ones, or if it's school or wherever they're going, they're holding it together because they're wanting to be, the best behavior. Like that's how they're taught, I guess. But when they get home, like there has to be a place where they can let it out. And they know that you're a safe space, hopefully. And so sometimes it's harder at home because they feel like this is our safe place.
Yeah.
And so I've seen that over and over again in my students. You know, I tell that to the parents of my students all the time. Like, it's okay if they lash out with you more than anybody else. You're their safe spot.
And that's a hard reality that I think we've got to learn to endure.
Yeah.
Their mess,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and that's the harsh stuff, and to care well for the mess that's inside of them, and how we love that and how we
Mm-hmm.
respond to that. Honestly, again, we can see how God loves us
Absolutely.
at our messiest when
Mm-hmm.
we're angry at Him.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He doesn't lash back out at us. Like he still loves us. And
Mm-hmm.
so even if it's like our 13-year-old losing their mind on us, and lashing out at us, like we've got to be mature and not like go to the same place in that situation and make
Mm-hmm.
the situation worse. We need to know that there's more going on. They're letting this out, and I need to be able to endure this so that I can hear what's really going on. I can pray over what's really going on and really have an opportunity to respond spiritually to it.
Yeah, I think it's where we set ourselves aside and we say, this isn't them trying to hurt my feelings.
Right.
This is
Don't
them
make it
crying
about
out for
us.
help.
Don't make it
Yeah, don't
about
make it
us.
about you. It's them feeling comfortable and they're crying out. And so we need to learn how to respond to that.
Yeah.
And vulnerability is so good. Like it's so hard, but when you know that you are that safe space for them, it's just
Yeah.
really great.
I mean, healthy parenting is an act in resilience and vulnerability.
Absolutely.
It's actually living those out. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you're having to persevere through some stuff, and maybe beyond this will actually
Yeah.
open up an opportunity for you to be vulnerable, maybe with another mom or another
Mm-hmm.
dad, and just talk out the struggle. We get it. The struggle is real.
Mm-hmm.
But these are super important. We see this stuff in our culture, and we really pray that this helps you think about these character qualities and how you're raising your kids in Christ.
Yeah, we're just so excited you guys are here. It's so great to just have a space to chat about this kind of stuff. So if this is something that's really kind of resounded with you, feel free to share it with some friends.
Yeah.
You know, not for a plug, but like our page so that we can get this content out to more people. We just want to
Absolutely.
help you guys.
Awesome. We'll see you next time.
Bye.